Hi, this is Eric Rawls of Cosmoverse.com, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Hi, this is Blade Runner, and you are listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, I'm Laura Sabrin of Feast to Fields Organic Vineyard in Jordan, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, my name is Lady Ashley, the White Witch of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal talk radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and the X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. And we're streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, tell me your comments about a show, if there's a special guest you'd like me to bring on the show, or maybe you'd like to share a paranormal experience that you yourself have had and just don't know who to talk to about it, and it's really bothering you, and you say, well, what can I do? Well, just send me a little brief email about your paranormal experience, and we'll certainly help you get to the people who can help you. My email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Gwilda Wiyaka. She is considered today's foremost expert on the modern-day application of ancient shamanic principles. She is the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School, for which she has written the entire curriculum and text. Gwilda is a preceptor for the University of Colorado School of Medicine, where she provides instructions to medical doctors on the modern interface between shamanism and allopathic medicine. For more information about our guest this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka, her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. Joining me now from Coaldale, Colorado, is Gwilda Wiyaka. And Gwilda, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob. Nice to be here.
First of all, Gwilda, what was it that drew you to shamanism to the point where you're considered as one of the leading experts in it?
Well, it started early on in my life. I was born fairly sensitive, and then I grew up in volatile situations where I had to kind of turn that on high to see what the people were feeling around me to stay safe. And problem being, I didn't know how I turned it on in the first place, so I didn't know how to control the volume, if you will. And by the time I got into college, I was in fight or flight all the time because I was feeling everybody's everything, and my health was failing and all that sort of thing. And I was working at a truck stop to earn extra shekels like one does when one is in college. And I was closing down, and this elderly couple, a Native American couple, showed up and knocked on the door. I'd locked it. And he explained that their truck had broken down, and that was in the day and age where you didn't have cell phones. You had to put a quarter in a pay phone, and we had one inside the coffee shop there. So I had them come on in. And then they started heading for the door when they were done with their call. And I said, well, what'd you find out? And he says, well, my brother will be coming to get us in about 30 minutes. And I said, well, stay inside. It's raining out there. I've got some coffee left, and I've got to shut down. I'll be here that long. So they stayed. And then when the brother came, I went to unlock the door to let them out. And the gentleman put a folded up napkin in my hand. He says, you'll need this someday. Use it. I thought that was pretty bizarre. And I put it in my purse as I closing the shop down. And I'd say a month and a half later, I really was going downhill, and I was really desperate, and I was cleaning out my purse, and I found the napkin that he'd given me, and it had a phone number on it. So I called the phone number, and it was his phone number, and I started studying with him. He was a Lakota elder, actually a Lakota shaman, and I studied with him for 6.5 years until he crossed. He was in his 90s when he crossed over, but it felt like I just didn't have enough, so I started finding shamanism everywhere I could, and ended up studying in all sorts of different forms and combining what they all have in common and making it modern practice.
Well, why don't we discuss with our listening audience here on Classic 1220 what exactly shamanism is?
Okay, I have a real simple way of explaining it. When you boil it all down, shamanism is an organized set of rituals that enables the practitioner to manage matter at the quantum level. Now, that's a lot of fancy words. What's it mean? Well, a shaman is an energy master, and they treat on the energetic level of life. So we have 4 levels: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. In our society, we treat the first 3, physical, mental, and emotional, but we don't tend to treat the energetic. We call it spiritual, but by spiritual we mean energetic or unseen or esoteric. It's unseen, but it is measurable. We're starting to measure, being able to measure auras, electromagnetic fields around the body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where shaman work.
Are first Canadians and Native Americans the only shamans out there?
Actually, no. There's a shamanic practice at the base of just every culture. And what's interesting is they all have a lot in common. A lot of the practice is very similar. But no, the Native Americans and the first Canadians are not. And they still are. And they aren't the only ones still practicing either. There's a lot of indigenous cultures with shamanic people practicing.
What is the origin of shamanism? Where did it originate?
No one really knows. We do know it's between 50 and 60,000 years old. And like I said, practiced at the base of just every culture. It's an earth and stellar-based practice, and there's signs of it in Aboriginal drawings in caves from, I don't know how far back those date. And one's here on the continent where we are in America and Canada. There's shamanic symbols in some of the petroglyphs and everything else. So, but it's ancient.
What is the role of a shaman in a community where shamanism is practiced?
In the ancient communities and in some of the modern communities that have not been taken over by Western people, a shaman was the healer of the tribe, but they were also, and there's different degrees, but they were mainly the person that was responsible for the spiritual wellness, information, and guidance of their entire tribe. And so they were the ones that went to for ceremony. They were the ones that did, if they were Lakota, the sweat lodge. They were the ones that did the healing. They actually did physical healing too, and were involved with herbs and that sort of thing. So they were medicine people as well as shaman.
So would the shaman be the medicine man?
The medicine man, it depends on the culture.
Okay.
Each hold that a little differently, and I think the ancients held it differently than the modern people do. But for a good rule of thumb, the shaman is the whole practice, and they're really kind of revered because they walk in many worlds at once, and they seem very enigmatic because of that. The medicine people are a step closer to the people. They are the ones that usually do the ceremonies, the naming ceremonies, sometimes the sweat lodges, unless it's a medicine lodge, and then that's for a shaman to do. So, like I said, it's a matter of degree.
What types of healing practices would a shaman engage in?
Well, depending, again, on the tribe and the era and the situation, we aren't shamanic practitioners. Shaman aren't restricted to working in the ethers, if you will. They also kind of cross that bridge between where everything is etheric and when it becomes physical. And so they would, when illness starts to establish itself in the body, the shaman was able to track down where the imbalance was and energetically correct it. Okay, then you'd have to take herbs to go with that and change your lifestyle or whatever needed. So in the old days, the shaman covered all those bases. Today, it's more the esoteric treatment of the frequency work is more focused on, because we have other modalities for the other.
It almost sounds as if a shaman could also be called a wizard, a witch, because all these people throughout history have done the same things that the shamans are doing.
Exactly. I mean, we could even call Jesus a shaman, because he did all the wonderful magical things that are attributed to shaman. And they aren't magic in the sense that they don't exist or it's woo-woo, but rather it's unseen and esoteric. So yeah, all of those practices, and there are modern day practices, your clairvoyance, your all the clairs, clairvoyant, clairaudient, all of those, and psychics are all working in a shamanic realm, just a limited portion of it.
How does a shaman connect with the spiritual realm?
That's one thing that all the practices across the board have in common, and that's an organized set of rituals, whether it's repetitive drumming or repetitive movement, like the whirling dervishes, or the monks that spin the little discs,
right.
Or drums, or didgeridoos. That's percussion. They use that to put themselves into what is called a journey trance, or a shamanic journey. And that's an altered state of consciousness, and it's measurable. I had my brain waves measured when I go into the trance and come back out, and I can repeat it at will. And then you go from every day of beta to alpha and clear into theta sometimes with your brain waves, and you access an interactive dream at that point. And the metaphors that are in the interactive dream are basically the answer to your question or the energies that are moving, but they're represented in metaphorical form in the imagination and then brought to the brain to be translated to get the information to ordinary reality.
I know there are some shamanic practices that use hallucinogenic drugs or plants in order to get into a what is it called, a spiritual trance. Do all shaman use these hallucinogenic or psychedelic drugs?
No, in fact, it's very much the minority. The South American shaman use the ayahuasca mixture. It's not just ayahuasca. It's ayahuasca and a mixture of various mushrooms and stuff traditionally. And they're one of the ones that are real popular today. But the problem is a lot of times when people go down there, they're getting on a bus with, the guy might look native, but he probably doesn't have a whole bunch of training. And, they don't have the, preparation that they used to in the indigenous times. So the Western person goes down there and they spend a week, and heck, they would spend a year preparing for this if they were a budding shaman back in the day. But now they just go down there, spend a week, take the drugs, and they aren't processed enough oftentimes to make use of the information or the altered state. And I end up having to put a lot of those people back together once they get back to the States. So it's one of those things, it's a, buyer beware kind of thing. But yeah, they're the ones that used it mostly. Now, the other one that's pretty familiar is the ghost dance. The Native American ghost dance. And the ghost dancers used mushrooms, to go into an altered state. However, it's important to recognize that was taking place after the white man came, and when there was a religion. It was not, shamanism is not a religion, but there was a religion set up around the ghost dance, and they believed that they would do the ghost dance and it would chase all the the white people back to where they came from.
All right, Gwilda, I hate to do this, but I've got to take my break. Exo Nation, Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest this hour. FindYourPathHome.com is her website. Shamanism is the topic of discussion here tonight on the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. And we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, www.classic1220.ca. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
The 1967 film of the elusive Bigfoot took every member of the paranormal and scientific community by great surprise. Finally, the proof that Bigfoot did exist, or did it? In 1996, the story broke on how Roger Patterson perpetrated his infamous hoax when the Canadian film director Harry Kimball described in detail that the film, edited at CanWest Studios in Vancouver, BC, was indeed a hoax. By the way, the footage was shot in Canada, not in the US, and yes, it was a rented gorilla suit. As of yet, there is no physical evidence whatsoever to support any claims for the existence of Bigfoot. Join me, Rob McConnell, for another story from the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology when next we meet in the X Zone, the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
He was born in the summer of his 27th year, coming home to a place he'd never been before. He left yesterday behind him. You might say he was born again. You might say he found the key for every door. When he first came to the mountains, his life was far away, on the road, hanging by a song. But the string's already broken, and he doesn't really care. It keeps changing fast, and it don't last for long.
And welcome back to the X Zone. We're coming to you on Classic 1220 at classic1220.ca from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. My guest this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka, is a shaman. Her website is findyourpathhome.com. Now, Gwilda was born in the United States, but she grew up overseas, becoming familiar with many cultures. She attended grade school in Saudi Arabia, obtaining most of her higher education in Switzerland. Now, coupled with her natural curiosity and fascination with the workings of life, living in different societies around the world, prompted her immersion into shamanism. Gwilda has studied with American Indian healers from the Seneca, Lakota, Navajo, Apache, and Choctaw traditions, and received training in Tibetan, Core, and Celtic shamanism. Once again, her website is findyourpathhome.com. What do people say when you tell them that you're a shaman?
Well, it depends on the people. Some people are really, interested, and other people think this lady needs to get back on her meds. So it really depends on how open the person is. But there's getting to be more and more acceptance for it.
Can you explain to our audience something called shamanic journeying?
You bet. We spoke of it a little bit earlier. Shamanic journeying is the journey trance, or the altered state of consciousness, that's common to all shamanic practices in one form or the other. And it's a way that a person goes into an altered state where they can access information from the quantum level, if you will, to bring back and to share with whoever sent them out to get the information.
Now, how do you start, or how would you commence shamanic journeying?
If I'm teaching it or just for myself?
Let's do both.
Okay. Well, if I'm doing it just for myself, I tend to be a little more Celtic in my approach, in that I go into the betwixt and between. So I focus on a place with neither one or the other. In other words, someplace between the shadow and the light, or between the leaf and the stem, that sort of thing. And then I slowly drop into a deeper state of consciousness. And I do that very, very quickly. But, I've been doing it a lot of years. When I teach it, I usually work with drums. And there's a beat that's just perfect for journeying. It's a slow, steady beat, about like a heartbeat, but more steady. And I have taught the people that what they need to do is to imagine. See, the imagination is the train that the reality ship runs on. So in their imagination, they see themselves just kind of like self-hypnosis. They see themselves going to a place in nature and asking that place in nature to take them to another state of consciousness. And it slowly takes them into that altered state. And if we were to measure their brain waves, that practice will actually take them again from daytime operation of beta through alpha into theta. And that's how we start it. But then there's a whole bit about interpreting metaphors and rules of the road and that sort of thing that we have to go over.
But reading the information you sent us, you've taken a number of different shamanic traditions or ways. Do they coincide with each other? Do they agree with each other, or do you have to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there to make a whole bunch of this?
Well, they have a lot in common, and they also have their cultural idiosyncrasies. So over the years of being isolated in cultures, from ancient times,
Yeah.
the shamanism developed around the belief systems and the norms and the place on the planet and the view of the stars that culture had. And so they do have cultural idiosyncrasies, but if you keep what they all have in common, then you find an awful lot in common, and it kind of creates a really solid practice without having to appropriate ceremony from any one indigenous culture.
All right. Earlier you said that we said that you studied with American Indian healers from Seneca, Lakota, Navajo, and so on. And then you said a few minutes ago that you practice Celtic shamanism. What's the difference between Celtic and Native American shamanism?
Well, the Native American shamanism and First Nation shamanism was established here on this continent for generations and generations and generations. And Celtic shamanism was practiced and is practiced among the Celts, the Europeans. And while I have a little Native in me, I have mostly Celtic blood, and it tends to agree with me more. So there's different styles of going into the journey trance, but what they all practices have in common is the altered state of consciousness known as the journey trance.
And what kind of rituals or ceremonies do you perform, Gwilda?
Personally?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, depending on what's going on, I tend to always perform ceremony on the equinoxes and solstices, the full moon, those sort of traditional times. And I'll get together with a group, and there's a certain thing that you focus on each time, and you bring into the ceremony what you would like to do that would cooperate with the season, and you set your intent, and you use the ceremony to help promote your intent into the world. So those are the modern day ceremonies that I do, but a lot of those come from the more Celtic traditions.
What role does music and chanting play in shamanistic practice? Well, there was a tongue twister.
There is a tongue. Yeah, it's really, really important, Rob. They have songs that have been passed down for generations and generations and generations, and they'll sing it around a drum, and it does put people in an altered state of consciousness. There's a frequency that's reproduced by these songs because they've been ancient and they've been handed down, and it does affect reality.
Really?
So yeah, you bet. And that's why we have hymns and a beautiful high mass and that sort of thing, is because the church recognized the power of sound, the power of frequency. But again, I'm a real stickler on leaving the traditional songs and ceremonies with the indigenous people and creating our own based on the principles. So because it's better to not perform them than to perform them wrong.
Now, there's something that shamans do that is called soul retrieval. Can you explain to our audience what soul retrieval is?
First, I have to explain what soul loss is, and I really don't like the term soul loss because nobody ever loses their soul. But basically what it is in a nutshell is, as we go through life, everybody has trauma.
Yeah.
When we are hit with a trauma that is something that we can't deal with at the time, very often we disconnect from part of our frequency and just go on with our life, thinking I'll never do it that way again. So when we decide we judge against doing something in a particular way, we've basically narrowed down our options as to how to respond in the future. And that is what we call soul loss, is disconnecting from a part of your natural expression. And soul retrieval is where a shamanic practitioner or a shaman goes into an altered state of consciousness, accesses the frequency that this person disconnected from, resonates with it, brings it back for that person to resonate with. Now, this sounds like a mechanical thing, but really it's done through story. The dream, the shaman will very often run into the person in their journey, and the person will tell them what happened. They'll see them maybe at the age that it happened. And so the person's hearing the story, they're making a different choice themselves, and that brings a frequency back for them.
It sounds a little bit like self-hypnosis.
It can be, but it's not as directed by the practitioner. So basically, it's driven by the client's intention. So when I talk to a client, I say, what's your intention for this? What would you like to heal? What's working you? And they'll tell me. But then when I go into journey, I don't have any of that in mind. I don't have any agenda. I don't have anything. This dream just unfolds. And as the dream unfolds, then events take place that then make sense to the person around the very thing that they're looking for. Oh, I see why I don't like authoritative men. My father was that way. And it made me feel unsafe in the presence of authoritative men, that sort of thing. And then they go, okay, well, that was then, this is now, and they can start to change their lives. But it also is a frequency upgrade so that they realign with the frequency that they let go of.
So how, in fact, do you interpret interpret dreams and visions? Is it through the learning of becoming a shaman that you understand what the dream psychology is all about?
Yes, it's a very, very, very important part of the training. And the biggest mistake I think young budding practitioners make is to take metaphors and interpret them literally. So if I'm journeying and I'm journeying on someone's health and I see demon in their liver, okay, I'm not going to come back and say, you need a depossession, there's a demon in your liver, okay, although some practitioners might. But what I understand is that I'm seeing, for me, the energy in the liver, the frequency in the liver is making a metaphor in my imagination to match up with the level of imbalance that's there. So there's not really a demon there, but there's a severe imbalance that needs to be treated.
Does the person have to give you permission in order for you to make this connection with them?
They don't have to for me to be able to, but I never work without permission. That's getting into the sorcery realm, and I won't go there. So the ethics that I teach and that I adhere to is you never work without permission.
What state of consciousness are you in when you're journeying?
It depends on what state of the journey I'm in. I can kind of walk in both worlds. In other words, I can go into a journey, but I can narrate it at the same time. So when I'm doing that, my brain waves, and I've had these measured, will be probably in alpha. But when I go deep into the journey to do some interior healing work for someone, and I go silent, then I'm usually in theta.
Gwilda, stand by. You and I have to take our next break. At Exonation, Gwilda Wiyaka is our special guest. Her website is findyourpathhome.com, and on her website you can find the books that Gwilda's written, the music that she's sung and produced. You can find out about the courses you can take online with Gwilda, as well as how to contact her if you'd like to get more information about shamanism. That's www.findyourpathhome.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on Classic 1220, www.classic1220.ca.
Already broken, and he doesn't really care. It keeps changing fast, and it don't last for long. With the Colorado Rocky Mountain High, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky.
Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. This world that I found is too good to be true.
And welcome back. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, right here on your hometown radio, 1220, Classic 1220. Our website is www.classic1220.ca. transformative.ca. Our guest this hour is Gwilda Wiyaka, www.findyourpathhome.com. Now, if you'd like to contact Gwilda for a one-on-one consultation, if you would like to see the books that Gwilda has and written, her music, the online courses, and much more, once again, just visit www.findyourpathhome.com. Gwilda, what part do animal spirits or animal guides play when you are doing one of your soul journeys?
They're a very important part, and that's also pretty much cross-cultural. You've seen the Egyptians with cat heads and the gods of this and that, and all of those are representations of particular energies. And particularly on this continent, the Native Americans really aligned with the animals that were present and used them as examples of particular divinations of energy or frequency. So if a person was having difficulty with their boundaries and always getting picked on, maybe the shaman would bring them back a skunk. Okay, now a skunk can just go about his business and be cute, but he picks up his tail and everybody gives him wide berth. Okay, so they were used as examples by what their nature was, what their behavior was, into behaviors or strengths that we could emulate ourselves. When I'm in journey and I get a power animal for a person, I'm not getting them their major totem just because of the way I'm working. What I'm doing is I'm getting them the frequency or an animal that'll represent the frequency that aligns with the healing that they're undergoing at the time. Now, I don't choose the animal. It just shows up to me in dream space, but it's amazing how accurate it is as far as aligning with the theme du jour that we're working on for them.
Right. So tell me, how do you protect yourself energetically when you're doing your work?
I found that the more processed a person becomes, the less protection they need. So I always am busy working on myself, my personal interior landscape, if you will. So if I have, and we all have triggers and fears and phobias and this sort of thing. And that's what can get triggered. And that's what brings up the, oh my gosh, you have to protect yourself. But if you don't have something in you to resonate with a frequency, it's not going to get in. So the cleaner I can be personally, the less vulnerable I am. But in the meantime, you need a stopgap, if you will. And I have ceremonies that set up sacred space. And I work with calling in the directions, or in the Celtic tradition, it would be called casting a circle, or making a medicine wheel in the Native American tradition, which is calling upon the earth elements and the stars to set up a high frequency environment in which to work.
Have you ever encountered negative entities or spirits during your practices?
You bet I have. And but again, we have to realize that they're appearing as demons or whatever in the imagination to represent the degree to which they are out of balance. Okay, so these are frequencies that are extremely out of balance, and they appear to be these scary demons. And one of the mistakes that have been made over the centuries, well, not necessarily mistakes, but misunderstandings, is that there are these demons chasing after us. Well, the thing of it is, if they're that imbalanced, it does cause sickness and mayhem in a person's life to have that kind of imbalance in or around them. So that's why the tradition has continued, the fear of the demons and stuff in the world. But it's just a matter of frequency.
Exonation, Gwilda Wiyaka is my guest tonight, and we're talking about shamanism tonight here on Classic 1220. Gwilda, you were talking about frequencies, and I'd just like to try and relate what you're talking about when you're talking about frequencies to other aspects of the paranormal, if we could. There are many people who believe in ghosts. There are many people who believe in demonic entities. There are paranormal groups who actually go out to try and investigate these apparitions that they say that are actually manifesting and doing some physical knockings or disembodied voices. So, in fact, are they just going after frequencies and actually nothing else of any substance?
Well, frequency, yes, everything expresses according to frequency, but that doesn't mean it's not real. However, the misinterpretation is one thing that we have to watch out for, because when a whole bunch of people get together and agree on something, they can actually manifest it or create it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we are the ghosts we seek, okay? If people aren't trained in the scientific method or in the, what do I want to say, investigative arena, then they can get off on wild fancies, agree on them, and create it, and actually get physical manifestation of the very thing that they're creating. So the difficulty with it is the training. If a person is trained, well trained, knows how to keep themselves out of the mix, then yes, you can register these things and get proof of these, physical representations of these things. But again, you have to be careful. Are we the ghosts we seek?
Gwilda, I know for a fact that you live in the beautiful Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and you and I have talked many times, and you've even sent me beautiful pictures of some of the animals that, present themselves to you, not only animals, but birds. Are these animals and birds giving you messages to help you with your shamanic work?
Yes, they do. I live alone up here on 48 acres off-grid in the San Luis Cristo Range, and I'm surrounded by all sorts of wildlife. And I never feel lonely because there's this, on the trees, everything. There's a communion. When you work in the shamanic way, there's this communion with all that is, and particularly the wildlife. The behavior of the animals and where they do it, when they do it, why they do it, can give me amazing insight. So if I'm walking down the road and I'm I put out there when I go on my walk, I'd really like to figure out such and such, then I can bet that every position of every animal, everything I see has meaning. Okay. And this has to do with synchronicity and coincidence, which are beautiful divinational tools. And if you know how to take the meaning of the animals and where they are located and how they're behaving, if you've trained in that, you can get very, very accurate information.
You talked before about totem animals. What are they?
Well, I like to differentiate between power animals and totem animals.
Okay.
I think of a totem animal as there's an animal you come with. And I'll bet you, Rob, know exactly what animal has always been your animal. You just have an affinity for this particular animal. Usually imagine them when you were a kid growing up or whatever. That's your totem animal. That comes when you come and that stays with you for a lifetime.
All right, my totem animal, I believe, is a bear.
That would be my guess,
Yeah.
yes. A big one. And but then throughout your life, depending on what support you need, then power animals will come to you to bring that particular power. Like I discussed the little skunk coming for a little guy that's being picked on all the time, okay? So the power animals are representations of a particular bandwidth of frequency that you need to resonate with in order to move through whatever you're moving through.
So in my case, my totem is a grizzly bear, and my power animal is a little Shih Tzu called Lola.
No, that's your familiar because she's still alive in the fur.
Oh, my heavens. This is all very interesting, and I can really see how bringing in the aspect of quantum physics into shamanism is really explaining the significance of it, the inner workings of shamanism, and how it applies to each and every one of us in our daily lives.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah. It's like science and the esoteric have been on a collision course, and once they hit, a lot of questions are going to be answered.
How do you help individuals achieve spiritual growth and transformation, Gwilda?
By helping them become more whole. I can't make anybody do anything, but by helping them become more whole in a frequency way of speaking. So like I said, we fragment from part of ourselves throughout our lifetime, and actually genetically we're fragmented. So they've now finding that all sorts of traumas are passed down through the generations, and through cultures. So the Jewish people will have a particular pattern of soul loss that's passed through the whole lineage,
right,
as the Native Americans will, as the Irish, we were enslaved at one point.
Yeah.
So by bringing the frequency back that a person or their family line has disconnected from, it grants them a whole wide range of options and powers that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And that, I think, is the most important function of modern day shamanism.
Well, you see that my most powerful frequency that I know is Classic 1220.
There you have it.
I'll talk about a plug, eh? Has there ever been a time when you've tried to do a journey that something has blocked you? And if so, how have you surpassed it?
Well, if I am not in, if I'm not in a good physical way, okay, sometimes journeying will become more difficult. But as far as just being blocked, I've had times when someone has asked me to journey on their behalf, and their consciousness is wanting me to do that, but their subconscious does not want me in there. They don't want to look at this. It's a big deal for them, and it's something that they'd rather die than look at. And I will get absolutely blocked, because what's blocking me is that person's subconscious. So I'm blocked from entering into their field, ergo I can't get their information.
It's just like hypnosis. If the person wants to be hypnotized, they will. If they don't want to be hypnotized, they won't.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a conscious want, or the subconscious is very powerful.
What is your, I've got about 2 minutes before I have to go for my next break, Gwilda. What has been the pinnacle of your career as a shaman?
Well, the favorite thing I ever did was teach children's programs and watch autistic children just blossom. I hold drumming circles for them. And working with children has just been a blessing, because the children that I've worked with now are adults. And a lot of them have gotten back with me and said, you made every difference in my life, and I still use the training. So that, to me, that's where the power for the future is with the children. So any work with children has always been a delight.
And are you still working with children?
Absolutely, yes, I do.
And do you do this remotely? Do you do it just in person, or do you do lectures, seminars?
I work with children through the parents very much, working remotely. I do actual shamanic healing for children as long as the parent is present and in agreement with it. And sometimes I'll do Zoom meetings at this point, because I'm clear up in the hills. I don't get to go and do group meetings in person as much anymore, but I'll do Zoom meetings with groups of children, because they're getting trained to do it, because of the school system after COVID had to go to Zoom for a lot.
Yeah, COVID was horrible in many aspects, but it was also a learning tool. If you opened up your mind to learning new technology, utilizing the technology for your betterment and the betterment of mankind. So, when you look at COVID, yes, it was horrific. In one respect, many people lost their lives, but we learned a lot that we're applying now each and every day. So, dual-sided sword, I would imagine.
Yes, most things are, aren't they, Rob?
All right, my friend, you and I have to take our final break for this hour. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like more information about our guest this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka, visit her website at findyourpathhome.com. The X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, is also a place where we search for answers but demand the truth. Monday through Friday from 11 o'clock Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio. Classic 1220. Classic1220.ca.
It's too good to be true. Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Splinza, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X-Zone.
This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X-Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Sun goes down on a silky day, quarter moon walking through the Milky Way. Oh, you and me, baby, we could
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone Radio Show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in beautiful St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, 1220. That's Classic 1220. And we stream around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour, Gwilda Wiyaka, is a shaman. And for more information about Gwilda, where you can find her contact information, the courses that she offers online, her books, her music, all one place, findyourpathhome.com. First of all, Gwilda, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. And what's it feel like to be a shaman?
It can be a little alienating because you end up viewing life very, very differently over time. But the joy is that I never feel alone or lonely because everything around me, I feel like I'm connected with it. And that's the plus side.
What's the downside?
Well, the downside is sitting at a cocktail party and finding it impossible to make small talk.
Okay, let's examine that statement a little bit. You're at a cocktail party, and why would you find it hard to make small talk? Like, guy sits beside you and you say, are you a Bigfoot?
Well, no, actually. What's the first thing at a cocktail party if somebody's going to ask a new person? What do you do?
I actually know all the cocktail parties I go to, they say, what are you drinking? Okay, right. So somebody asks you, what do you do? I think saying that I'm a shaman. I help people. I communicate in both worlds. How can I help you? I think that'd be a great conversation opener.
Either that or they turn around and run.
It depends on what they're drinking and how fast you can trip them.
There you have it.
No, but seriously, I would imagine that it has a bit of prestige with it because not everyone, Gwilda, can do it. That's the difference between a shaman and a practitioner, right?
Yes, well, the shaman is much more masterful, but usually has come from an indigenous background. But yeah, being masterful at something speaks of a lot of years and a lot of dedication.
And you have that as well as a lot of credibility behind you. Tell us a little bit about the work you do at the University of Colorado with the doctors.
That's so fun. I'm a precept for the university. And what I do is in their alternative medicine courses, I teach doctors, the up-and-coming docs, about the interface between shamanism and allopathic medicine. And give them demonstrations of medical intuitive and how the two forms can work together. It's really a lot of fun, and I've been doing it for well over 15 years. And some of the docs have come back to me to use me as a referral, in their referral base.
Sure.
Some have come back to me as clients. It's really fun to see that. I think in the future there's going to be a lot more interface, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, that says a lot because the University of Colorado is highly respected. And for them to have you on board as a precept to work with these doctors, that is a feather in your cap. So that would be something that you could easily discuss at a cocktail party.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're giving me ideas, see?
There you go. How do the doctors who are just, learning before they get licensed or when they are licensed, how do they react with the shamanistic way or the new age way of looking at alternative medicine and how it is working together with Western medicine?
Well, there's a lot more acceptance now than there used to be. Now, the Colorado School of Medicine is located in Boulder, Colorado, and that's kind of the mecca of alternative medicines. So they have a little bit more openness and a lot more access to it. So, but yeah, there's just a whole new wave of it opening up. I'm seeing much more of what they call integrative medicine, okay, where they are integrating. They started out with, okay, we're going to integrate nutritionalists and we're going to integrate therapists, but then it's reaching out further, and thus, my being part of the university precept program. But there's a lot more openness to it, and I really think in the future that there is going to be a lot of support from all sides of the fence, so that the docs don't have to do this all by themselves.
I would imagine that in today's society, there are those people who come to you for spiritual growth, for communication, for a better understanding of life. But can you assist someone in connecting with their ancestors?
Yes, I sure can. I can do mediumship work, or I can do genetic work, whereby we can go backwards in their genetic line, find a place something got derailed, correct it, and then it changes the person's life. It's amazing. So yeah, we can do genetic work, we can do ancestral work. The Native Americans, well, most natives are really big on the ancestors, and now that we're studying more and more and more about genetics and finding that the like I spoke earlier, tendencies are passed down genetically from trauma even, that we start to understand why they were so mindful of their ancestors and would journey to their ancestors to get answers for the future.
Would you be able to explain to us your understanding of karma and its influence on healing?
You bet. I think that the karma is looked at in a very narrow fashion, like you do something wrong, you're going to come back as an ant next lifetime or whatever. Or there's all these stories that are being built. Well, a past life that you and I had a great connection, and we had unfinished business, that kind of stuff. I think that's very simplistic and misleading. Okay, karma is, there's a natural push and pull in life. And the way life works, the way the earth works, the way the stars work, that's a powerful thing. And if you're pushing against that, we know who's going to wear out first, okay? And so I think what we call negative karma is actually moving against the way life works. And that could be interpreted as sin as well. It just means moving against the natural order. And it has its, planned, not planned, but predictable results.
In ceremony, shaman use fire. What is the significance of the fire in a shamanic ceremony?
Well, actually, they use call on all the elements. The fire is the most visible, but usually, if they're doing a ceremony, they'll have water, air, earth, and fire, or call in the spirit of it, the frequency of it, to create that balance. If you'll notice in the Eastern traditions, they have the four, I think they use between 5 and 7 elements. Balancing those elements is how they restore health. And that's the same thing in ceremony. Is if you want to create a high frequency environment to perform a powerful ceremony, or to have a safe space to work in, the best way to do it is to balance the elements with the earth, to balance yourself and your environment with the elements, and therefore the earth. They'll also pull in the directions.
X-Zone Nation, Gwilda Wiyaka is my special guest this hour here on the X-Zone Radio Show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. And we're coming to you on Classic 1220, and we're streaming around the world right now on classic1220.ca. Also, December's edition of the X Chronicles newspaper is now available for each and every one of our listeners here on Classic 1220 without cost, with the compliments of the X-Zone Radio Show. All you need to do is go to www.xchronicles.net. That's www.xchronicles.net. Read, enjoy, and there's also a link on that page to where you can go back to our library, and there are a great number of past editions of the X Chronicles that are also there for you with our compliments. Gwilda, do you believe in past lives or reincarnation?
Again, that's another one of those topics that I think is greatly misunderstood and simplified. It's very difficult to decide if you had a past life, or if you are accessing memories from a genetic, an ancestor, okay, and it's still in your field. I think it's a real mixed bag. And as far as reincarnation goes, I think that's simplified very much. I don't know that we come back as the same person over and over and over again, even changing genders and this sort of thing, so much as the same essence, the same frequency, the same family. We're all made of stardust, and we all come here for a little while.
Right.
But who's to say how much of us comes and goes at any given time?
I guess my final question for you tonight, my friend, is what are the ethical considerations of shamanic healing practices?
That's one of my real sticklers when I'm a teacher, is that we really have to have ethics. And because there's no regulation on shamanism, it's not necessarily taught. And I made sure to teach it in my school. And I have 5 basic rules that I like to follow. Shamanism is never practiced without permission.
Right.
Shamanism never takes energy away from where it does belong. Shamanism never puts energy where it doesn't belong. Shamanism does no harm. And that, those 5 will kind of keep you straight. But confidentiality is very big. Being able to work your own stuff so that you're clear when you come into the presence of whoever you're working with, to clear your field, to clear your issues, to set them aside so that you're coming as a hollow bone to bring through what this person needs, is also very, very important, and it's not necessarily taught.
Gwilda, I want to thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, what is your final message for the Exo Nation? You've got about 60 seconds.
Okay. Well, my final message would be, we're in a time of upheaval and turmoil, and that can be the most alchemical time. That can be a time when we can turn everything around on a dime if we explore the depths of our being, reclaim our right as individuals on the planet, reclaim our frequency, reclaim our power. We can change all of this. And I think that for now, shamanism is the key to doing that. But I look forward to a day when shamanism is once again obsolete, in that every individual will have direct access themselves because they've gone through enough healing and enough processing that they can get their own answers from source.
Gwilda, thanks very much for joining us. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to contact Gwilda Wiyaka, her website is www.findyourpathhome.com. And you can listen to Gwilda's own radio show by going to www.missionevolution.org. Well, that's it for tonight, Exo Nation. I'll be back tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. I don't know why I keep saying 10. It's actually 11 o'clock Eastern, as we continue searching for answers and demanding the truth. So from everyone here at the X-Zone Radio Show to everyone out there, take care of yourself, be happy, and thanks for joining us on Classic 1220. Whether you're listening to us in your car, your home, or online around the world on classic1220.ca. And always remember, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.